Oh, you can do that again.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is the Rates and Lanes podcast with Rico Muhammad and Chuck Snow. I don't know if our friend Rico Muhammad is going to be able to join us. He's having some tech issues down in Georgia or the Carolinas, wherever he is tonight. And our guest tonight is Bruce Outridge, who is the genius creator of Lead Pedal Podcast, Lead Pedal Radio, old-time trucker, a lot of miles under his belt, a lot of experience, and he's still pretty frontline on the industry. If you have any questions or comments, we're live. You can ask Bruce anything, anything you want to know about what he does or what his opinions are. And one thing we do ask, we're on Facebook, Instagram, we're on YouTube. We are looking for those likes. It really helps with our algorithm. So, and X as well. So if you can put like, if you're watching this, please, that really helps us. With no further ado, Bruce, how the hell are you?
I'm good, man. I'm good. Thanks for having me on. Always fun to come on.
Oh, yeah. No, we always have a riot together.
My wife goes, "Oh, that's Rico you're going to be on with." I said, yes. She said, I just share it. I'm waiting for it to pop up in my feed here, and then I'll share it across to our other platforms. But yeah, no, thanks for having me on the show. It's been a while since I've been on, but I've tried to pop. And you guys always have really interesting guests and a lot of fun conversation for sure.
There is, and you're a frontline guy. You're not pounding pavement, but you're certainly talking to everybody in the industry, from truck drivers to trainers to truck fleet owners. Everybody. What are you hearing now? Are things getting a little busier, or are you hearing that not flat out?
I think what I heard just before Christmas, I was hearing that things were looking up. People were starting to see some movement, and I know some of the fleets that I deal with through the podcast are starting to hire and looking for people right away. So that's a good sign. But then we've got this issue of the politics to the south of us here, and I'm not sure I think a lot of people are nervous about these tariffs, and I think that's the conversation that's going on right now everywhere.
Oh yeah. Because I know that I was having a conversation with somebody today that's in the business of renting trailers, and he's seen a real uptick in his dry van rentals, not long-term leases, right. But he was telling me that in his particular business, because of the tariffs, a lot of their big customers are just buying whatever they can and hold it. They don't have the warehouse capacity, so they're just holding it in storage trailers and even some regular dry vans.
Yeah, but we're an export country, and I'm not sure if you wanted this to go down the political route. We may have to switch to something else.
Well, you know what? We really do try to stay away from the actual politics and just keep with the stories of the day. And certainly, story of the day is the tariffs, because it could affect Canada adversely.
Well, it will, and it's even you don't realize it until you're in business, and then you really see it. And I'm one of those, we're a podcast, a media company, but we're an average size, but we're kind of small, I guess. So even if trucking has tariffs and the carriers have issues, that trickles down to us because they're our customers. And if they, of course, are having issues with, finances and running a business, they're going to say, okay, stop, advertising or whatever. And that trickles down to us, and it's going to trickle down to everybody. Anybody, even my friend, I was at my friend that owns a chrome shop the other day. Right. And he buys pretty well all of his stuff from the U.S. A lot of, the mainstream chrome suppliers are all in the U.S. and he's really nervous about that too. That's going to increase his costs, and he can't afford to swallow 25%, so he's going to have to pass that on, and that means that's going to go up for everybody else as well. So it's going to go right through the chain, unfortunately.
Rico, who I guess he's not able to broadcast from where he is, but he's certainly brought up a great point here to add. With these ICE raids in the U.S. On the migrant people, that's who picks the produce. Americans do not pick. They don't pick the produce. And a cousin of mine in Arizona brought up the same point yesterday in a conversation. He said that he was worried about where fruits and vegetables are going to get, where they're going to come from, because they're all picked by labor that comes from Mexico, or and even the chicken houses and all the slaughterhouses and all the packing houses. Good point, Rico. There's all those migrant people. That's what they've been doing for probably in the last 50 years or so. Those used to be, those packing house jobs were good jobs at one time.
Yeah, well, you think about the U.S. and you think about Canada, and a lot of those workers, we see them. We were just recently in Barbados. Where do you think a lot of these workers are coming from? And I've told my son before. I said, hey, go work on a farm. Nobody wants to do that job, and nobody can do it. The people that are coming in that do that all the time, they can pick a whole slew of trees while I'm still trying to figure out how to get the stem off of the branch. So
you're right. You know what? And right around where we live, north, where we live, just north of northwest of Toronto, there's farms around here there's fruit farms and things like that, and even Sheridan Nurseries has quite a big operation here, and they bring in labor every year from Barbados, from Mexico, from Jamaica, and Leamington, the tomato capital of Canada, probably in North America now. That's all Mexican labor there working in the greenhouses.
Yeah, and that money that they not only spend some here, but they take it back to their families. So whatever country they're coming from, relies on that income as well, to help feed their own children or whoever is back in their homeland. So it's going to trickle down to everybody. I hate to see the tariffs go on. We are an export country, which means the dollar is what kept us going. You now start adding tariffs and stuff on that, and we don't have enough supply in Canada. Like, even if we say we're going to ship Canada only, I can tell you it's not going to happen, because we don't.
We're a tiny little country, 35 million people, or 38 million, whatever it is right now, spread from along this vast, this vast area of land.
Yeah. It's not going to happen, and we can't get the parts. So I'm interested to see what happens. That's the talk that we're talking about in transportation right now. And I think I don't know if you read Mike McCarron's article not too long ago. Says everybody's sitting on the fence. Everybody's watching.
Yes.
They're waiting for February 1st. Then they're going to deal with it and go down. And as much as I support the whole, Canada retaliate, I'm not. Our world is too intertwined.
I know. As a matter of fact, Bruce, it's not
going to work, right?
Yeah. Well, 38 states, and they're not all border states, depend on Canada for selling their product. We are their biggest trading partner. Forget about what we're selling them, because what I have noticed, we sell them a lot of stuff, but mostly what we sell them, if you're looking at numbers, our big driver financially to the U.S., it's commodities, it's minerals, it is grains, and things that we grow, potash and oil, because. If you look down where you guys live down in Burlington, Oakville area, so many of those companies that you and I grew up, watching these manufacturers, they've gone. They moved down to the Rust Belt, even though, there's almost a 40% difference in dollars, because of the cost of operating a plant here is so prohibitive that we don't have the outbound freight that we used to, even with our cheap dollar.
Yeah. And I know a lot of steel haulers, we're right in the steel, steel capital here. So, I'm feeling for a lot of my driver friends that usually haul steel and are running south with it. I don't know what that means for Dofasco. I'm not sure where they sit in all of this, but that's some of the issues we're going to have. But then, you think about, and think about what 3-4 years ago Schneider pulled out.
Yes.
They pulled their Guelph office and they're running strictly out of the U.S. How many other companies are doing that, where they're actually owned by the U.S. with Canadian offices and locations? How many are they going to pull out? Because when they start doing that, you're losing good jobs from people that might work for an American company. I worked for an American company before, and this kind of stuff, they start going, you know what, we're just going to stay in America, and they pull their Canadian offices and do things remotely or something, right?
Yeah. Shame on us. Okay. Because as you know, I ran a business for, over 45 years. And I got to tell you, I had a rule that I never wanted to be beholden to any client for more than 20% maximum.
Right.
If I got a report that we were like 22%, we didn't tell the customer give us less business. We made sure we went out and hustled, and we diluted that to maybe 18%.
Yes.
And what we've done in this country, which is a total disservice, is we've allowed this country to be beholden to one country, basically. And I know we export things to other countries, but when you look at how much we export to the U.S., it's a lot.
Yeah, yeah. Your business is particularly interesting because you have locations all around North America, and I don't know if you've got more outside of North America, but what are you hearing? I think you're still in touch with some of those people. That way of closing offices or what have you, because I think you guys are expanding quite.
They've opened up an office, I know, in Mexico now.
Okay.
Because there's a larger footprint there, and I don't even know how many offices Traffics now has in the U.S. because I lost track. But a lot of their work within that organization, it's domestic, because Canada, even as big as it is, it's still 1/10 of the population of the United States.
Right.
So really, this is what I predict, and I didn't read this, I didn't hear it. This is my own prediction. Come February 1st, there's not going to be 25% tariff. He's going to move it. He's using this as a scare tactic. And he's got everybody running scared.
That's what I'm hearing, that everybody's going, he's bluffing, but I'm not sure he's bluffing as much as because he can. I think he wants, whether it stays for a long time, it's not going to take a long time for it to really affect our economy. So I don't know. I don't trust Trump as much as I can throw. So I don't know what he's planning. I'm hearing a lot of people saying we think it's going to be 10. It's not really going to be 25, but I don't know.
Even 10. Okay.
Yeah. 10 is.
If we're already, you take your friend at the Chrome shop. Okay. Right. He's already paying almost 40%.
Yep.
Okay. Now you add another 10%.
Yep.
What happens then?
Yeah.
And the products he sells, they fit North American trucks. It would take, even if you found another country that could build the same stuff as what the U.S. is, it takes months, if not years, to retool.
Yeah.
Be able to start, making all these chrome parts. You can't do it overnight.
No, and he deals with all the OEMs and the dealerships up here and sells to them. So I'm not sure how it's going to work, but we had this conversation. I went to see him on Friday, and it's the conversation that everybody's having on the table right now with no answers. There's nothing to say. Unfortunately, there's no plan. I don't have a plan. When he raises tariffs, I go, okay, let's see who's staying on, who's going down, whatever. There's no plan. You really can't have a plan until he announces it and says, here's what we're doing, and then see what that effect is going to be on the industry. And I'm sure all industries are looking like that. Like trucking, we're very much in the export. I feel for that kind of stuff. Every time the dollar goes up and down, I used to oh my gosh, because we used to haul steel and all of that. Sure. And now you don't know what it's going to do. I mean, we're already struggling enough here in Canada, and I think in the U.S., a lot of our, U.S. neighbors are having issues as well with basic, meals and food and all that stuff. Yeah. Everything's going to affect everybody. It's just wrong, I think. We should be.
I can't agree more. It's morally wrong. Somebody that's very wise said to me today, what he may very well be doing is trying to just put us to our knees so that our dollar's worth nothing, and then come in and he'll be the savior by making us the 51st state so we can eat.
I don't want him.
I love America. I love Americans. I just chose not to be one because you know, we've had ample opportunities to move down to the U.S. and I like it up here. You know, my parents were raised here. You know, my mom was born in the States, but she came here at 3 weeks old, and my dad was born here. You know, my grandparents came from Europe to this wonderful country. And right now we're having a bit of a tough time here on all fronts, but you know what? Things will get better.
One thing I've noticed, and I don't know if you've noticed this, and I don't know why I'm bringing this up because this is a trucking show, but all the E. coli stuff that there's been a lot of breakouts lately that we have. And I got a feeling a lot of that might have to do with the immigrants that are not that they're doing that, but as you get less and less workers, people start cutting corners to try and keep up with demand. And I don't know if that's anything to do with the trucking industry, but something I've noticed lately. You'd hear an E. coli once in a blue moon, but boy, it's been like quite a few lately in a row.
Yes. You know, Bruce, you may have hit the nail on the head. Without, you know, you may have just hit it. That may be exactly where it's from. When you start cutting corners, things happen. You know, you can't, if your operation requires 100 people, when you get rid of 50, things are going to go by the wayside.
Right. So you forget that check, you don't clean that thing as much as you should, or whatever the issue is, and that's, you know, I think rolls out to us, and then it rolls into the trucks that comes across the border. You know, everything is connected, and this is one of the things that makes me really nervous about. I can't watch the news anymore. I just yell at it for a long time.
I think we all do, and you know, so much. I just want to say one thing about news. It's so disappointing. When I was a kid, but you're a lot younger than me, but I remember when I was a kid, probably when you were a kid, we actually got news. Yeah. You know, the Harry Reasoners and all those great, you know, Peters Mansbridge, wherever you're from, they gave the 6 o'clock news or the 11 o'clock news. That they delivered the information. Right. And today, what we're getting is a lot of people's opinions. I don't really care about anybody's opinion. That's your opinion. Tell me what happened.
We get it 4 different ways. You know, we start with one program and it's all the same news over and over, but you get everybody's different take on it. You know, the one thing I like about going to the islands is half the time we can't get a channel. There's been on the TV for a whole 2 months, and I love it. But it's the way it goes. You know, it's hopefully I'm sure we're gonna come through it. We all seem to come through it, but it seems like it was a real struggle. We come through this pandemic. Everybody was just starting to get back up, and the last thing I think we need is all of this tariff stuff and trade wars, and you know, I don't know where this goes.
Sometimes you need something like this to make some changes.
Yep.
And stuff, my late mom always said, stuff seems to work out in the end. And she's right. And as long as it takes a long time and you don't understand, how can this be good? But years later, you go, wow, you know, that was a horrible thing that happened, but look what happened as a result of it. It's like, you know, if you've ever driven through or flown over Northern Ontario or out west or right now California, and you see where, you know, a fire has devastated a forest, but 2 years later, there's all sorts of little shrubs coming out.
Yeah. On the good side, and this may be beneficial for people who are looking at different careers and jobs and stuff like this, there may be an opportunity here because people are getting nervous. Someone who's, you know, maybe here from the States on a work visa or working for a company that has locations here may decide to go back depending on what happens. And that might be an opportunity for somebody here that's looking for a new career to have an opening to jump in when companies might be a little more to say, okay, yeah, we're looking more for Canadian talent or US talent on the other side. I'm trying not to get, you know, I've got as many US, I know you do too, Chuck. We got a ton of US friends. Both.
Oh, yeah. And you know,
so we're not putting them all in the same boat.
No. And you know what? Trump is doing some good stuff and he's doing some crazy stuff at the same time. So yeah. I hope for America's sake, he addresses the crime issue. Yeah. You know, is all the crime in the United States, this uptick in crime, is it all done by migrants? I really don't believe that.
No, and that is coming from Canada. Yeah, how many trucks were stopped not too long ago? You know, bringing guns or stuff across the border like
yes.
this. They just big cocaine bust or something not too
Oh
long.
my God! It's just, and part of that. Well, you always have criminals in every business, especially criminals have discovered the trucking industry because they can smuggle all sorts of things from people to contraband of different drugs, guns, you name it. They'll figure out how to get it in. But part of it also has to do with it's a tough economic climate, and I'm not saying it's right, but some guy, has got a fleet of trucks and he's been bleeding and the bank's calling him. Maybe that's the guy rather than tell the bank, you know what, I can't do it anymore. You have your trucks back. Maybe he figures, you know what, I'm going to bring back a load of oranges, and in one of the boxes, there's going to be a bunch of drugs in it.
Well, that's the first thing if you go to any law enforcement, border patrol, when they're hiring you, that's the first thing to look at is your finances to see, are you the kind of person that's going to possibly take some kind of a deal to end. I don't know if you remember, human trafficking's around a lot now, and it's Human Trafficking Month. I just throw that out there. And we just heard on the news tonight, there was an issue in Burlington here, which is very close to home because that's where I live.
We live there.
But I remember years ago, there was a truck driver that he was caught, and I thought he was caught with something like 100 people in the back of his trailer. I don't know if you remember that. It was in a Walmart. He went to get them water. This was probably about 5 years ago, I think. I think it was actually before the pandemic. Right. And I noticed that his truck, he had one of these custom Peterbilts, the kind you and I see down at Matt's. And I thought, what kind of guy uses a custom Peterbilt that stands out and everybody's looking at as you go down the road to, haul people and be in the trafficking industry? And probably, it sounds like he was behind and trying to make it and trying to pay for that truck. And that's one of those loads that, he took and he got caught. But there is a lot of people that might be looking at that kind of stuff. So crime's already high here as far as I'm concerned, and it's going to get higher. So hopefully,
it's a lot higher than the Ontario you and I grew up in, where people didn't lock their doors or their cars. We just went to buy car insurance. To renew, and we're clean. No, we don't. If one of us had a little fender bender, we just pay it out of our pocket. We're smarter than that than to use our deductible. And it went way up. And the agent said, "Listen, all these stolen cars, you're paying for it." I didn't steal any cars, but that's how it works.
Oh, I know. My insurance went up this year just because I drive one of these Ram trucks, and mine's 4 years old. But you know what? Yeah. They say and. It just went up for that. I've got a clean record too.
I know. It's just insane. Bruce, something else, and you know a lot about it, and we're seeing a real uptick in truck wrecks. And this is a bad wind. I just went outside before I came on the air, and and all I could think of when I was outside is, my God, thank God I'm not driving tonight. It's just blowing away. One of those nights, where you're going to make it to Chicago, but very slow.
And we've done it, right? How many times you and I have done that?
Yeah, your eyeballs get all the time. You delivered on time, but but I don't know if we could do it today because we don't have the paper logs anymore.
I don't have the patience level, probably probably more important. I just can't believe the way people drive on the road. But I ran chemical to Chicago 3 times a week. 69 I was on 69 all the time there, and that road ices up like you just cross the border and boom, it turns into black ice. 401 is the same right around that Oshawa, Bowmanville area. It's probably got to be one of the worst areas it's been getting hit. And this is why, and they came out with that. Did you hear about they want 20 hours of simulator driving, winter driving for truck drivers? They're trying to pass this as a new
Hallelujah.
Yeah. So the simulator might be able to give you a bit of a technique, of a slippery road, but it's not accommodating for the other 20 cars that are sliding towards you at the same time that are out of control. That's the part that scares me. But
you're right. You're 100% right. And I've seen this uptick. I watch it very closely because I'm a real advocate of truck safety and doing things right. And I always said to the guys we were hiring, my job is to keep you safe.
Yeah.
That's my job. I don't ever want to have to go to your home, knock on the door, and tell your family something happened to you. That's my thing. So, we ran the business, our fleet of traffics that way. We had one guy that ran, he was a night runner and he preferred to run at night, but everybody else ran, like they shut it down no later than midnight, maybe 1 a.m. That was the latest, and most guys way before. And I got to tell you, everything went a lot better once we instituted that policy.
Yeah, but it just shows today that people have to be able to, and this has always been, if as a driver, you have to be able to handle all conditions, because it's clear here. I could tell you in Burlington here where I live, I'm right next to the lake. We have not had snow all winter. Like, it's been almost nothing. And then you look at the news and they're talking about, 10 centimeters in Durham or something like that.
Yeah.
We are not in the, I don't know what it is. I don't know if we have a bubble over our place, but there's very little snow a lot of the time, whenever other areas like Cambridge and Kitchener and so forth are really getting hit. And so if you're a driver and you're leaving out of here thinking you're all set to go and you're not going to hit snow because you're going down south, you're going to hit it. Usually London areas.
If you've ever run down through Pittsburgh, damn well around Erie, Pennsylvania, that snow is just blinding.
Yeah. I had a friend who she passed away there. That Erie stretch. I don't know how many times I've slept in those Erie truck stops waiting for the thruway to open over the years. But I had a friend who, a quick story. She was coming back on the thruway. They closed the thruway because of a snowstorm. She got off on the service road because she lived here in Burlington. Had an accident on the service road, and while they were cleaning up the service road, the highway had reopened, and her husband, who's also a truck driver, about 50 miles behind her, now passes her, not realizing that's his wife in an accident. Trust me, that happened years ago. And it's funny. Then I interviewed a guy on the podcast who said, I was in that same snowstorm and I was radioing people all the time saying, watch out, it's really bad here. He was on the CB. Nobody was listening. And then here's the same snowstorm and incident in the same spot that my friend passed away. So, people, you got to really, truck driving, 20 hours of simulator, great start. I don't know how we're testing for that. Like,
we're not. You know what? Let's be honest. And that's the whole, I have this theory and I want to talk to you about it. My theory is, and this is why we have such a huge uptick in truck wrecks. First of all, and it's no secret, we have throughout North America, this is not just Toronto, we have run out of farm boys from the Midwest. Okay. Yeah. Saskatchewan, Manitoba, Alberta, and then down south, the Dakotas, all through. There's no more farm boys. Okay. That's pretty much over. So now we're depending on farm boys from overseas. No, they're people, but they come here and they learn how to pass their test on both sides of the border. This is not a Canada only or US only. They take courses to pass a test, not to learn to drive.
Right.
And they're proficient at passing the test. They pass the test. Now they take this person that has never really driven a tractor trailer in blinding snow or, out west. How the snow blows across the highway in the winter and makes it icier than hell. It's a skating rink. And even if you're loaded with 44,000 pounds or even more, you can still get blown across into the rhubarb.
For sure.
And we put these people in peril. This has to change.
Yeah, and everybody around them. I don't know about you, but I remember getting my license. The MTO is who did my license. That's who was working as, when you had to go and do the test. There was no drive test. It was the transportation. MTO officer was the one that was actually conducting the test. And I think we need to go back there. I know there's been some talk about that in the training world here, because there's a lot of talk on training right now. And because they're redoing all the curriculum. They now have some new regulations for schools on submitting to career colleges. They're trying to clamp down on some of these schools that are not doing things properly. Not sure if that's going to be enough, but it's a start. But one of the comments in one of the posts I saw was, let's get back to MTO officers. And this brings it to enforcement totally. And I don't know why they're not hiring for this. just today, I'm driving home, my wife home from a doctor's appointment, and I couldn't believe in the left lanes, tanker. I won't say the name of the company, but they are a well-known tanker outfit that hauls fuel. And the guy had a set of B trains in the hammer lane of the QEW. I saw him go under the sign that said no trucks allowed. So I know he's not supposed to be there. I know he's coming up to the split, but even in the split, what do you do? And there was not just him. There was a dump truck in front of him. And I'm thinking, do they even know? And this guy was not, he was not from, he was not South Asian. So to protect the South Asian people, the driver was not from South Asia, or he was, like, I'm just thinking, you never would have caught myself, or I'm sure yourself, out in that. That was a no. Don't ever get out there.
45 years ago, or 40 years ago, that was $100.
Yeah, it was $500 last time I remember hearing about it. But
I'm older than you. Inflation. That was like.
Is that pay off to the police officer, or is that the actual fine?
I never got caught because I never did it. Because you know what? I didn't want to get a ticket.
Yeah, I don't. It's like, and I see it all the time, especially on the QEW here where I live. And I know the split's coming up, and they've got to go Niagara bound, but even going on the split, you shouldn't be in the left lane. It's only a 2-lane turn. Yeah. So as a truck, you should be just in that right lane. Yeah. I'm just seeing it over and over, and I just shake my head. Like, I'm not even in enforcement, and I know the rules better than.
I've thought of this. Do you remember years ago, Markel Insurance?
Yeah.
Okay. And they were a good company. They were a really good company. They even had a phenomenal training school that was as good as the Kim Richards School. Okay. If you went, I always said those were, and Humber College, which apparently is closing down now, their school. But those were, as far as I was concerned, the 3 best schools at the time. And I remember years ago, Markel used to have guys running around in cars, because any vehicle insured by Markel had that M on the vehicle, on trailers and on tractors. And I remember I was working for a little while at Eagle Transport, and they had to buy insurance from Markel, and everybody got a sticker, and some guys were trying to put it on their wheels, on their tires. Yeah. But because there were guys following you, watching you, and filming you back, and this is like 50 years ago.
I know, but even the companies had their own guy. I ran for a company that's based out of New Brunswick, and I ran for them for 6 months. But they had a guy who was actually, I don't know if he was part of their insurance or part of the fleet, but he was like a cop. Everybody knew his car. It was a black sedan. If you saw this car in the truck stops in New Hampshire or something, and he was watching everybody go across the border and do your thing, and he would write up reports on you. And of course, this was an all owner-operator fleet for the most part, so I don't know how much, but everybody knew who he was, and it was kind of like playing the game in Convoy, we're us against... because everybody knew him, and we're like, oh, watch him, and the CB would ring. He's hanging out in this truck stop right before the border, and it was always out by St. Stephen's in Maine and stuff there. But yeah. I wonder how do companies do that now? Do they have police?
They don't. No, the insurance companies don't do it. The carrier, none of the carriers I know of. Now, maybe some of the big guys, that have 1,000 trucks or 500 trucks, maybe they do a little bit of it. I'm sure if ones that run a lot, maybe between like a set route, like Toronto, Montreal or something, they do it so they can keep an eye on things, especially today with a lot of younger, and we were all inexperienced, Bruce, but and we all learned, but traffic wasn't as bad years ago. Trucks are a hell of a lot safer, the trucks themselves, but we didn't have the congestion.
Yeah, I feel I had really good training. I did not go to a school, because back I started driving. I got my tractor trailer license. I think it was 81 or 82, and there was not very many schools around, and I didn't have $1,000. was there. But I did learn off a friend of mine that worked for the same moving company. He was our tractor trailer driver, and his dad was an owner operator for our fleet as well. And he taught me to drive. They allowed me to, practice on weekends, and then I would go out with him. And then when he would fill in for his dad, and so I would go on trips to him. My first trip was to Cleveland, Bluegrass, Iowa, one of the coldest places in the world, right there. One stoplight. I still remember that was my first trip to Iowa, and I just thought, this is the coldest place. I'm what, 20 years old when it happened.
Right.
What the heck am I doing here? But you know what? He taught me, because I was able to go with him, and we actually owned a truck together. Our first truck we owned together. Our first time going across the border with a load of furniture, 6 hours. They pulled the whole load away. We had to repack it. They pulled the whole load apart. And so when people go, well, I don't like the border because I had to wait an hour, I go, well, my first time was 6 hours. Don't stop you. I mean, get back on. And, that's the way customs works sometimes. And it's a pain, but it's the way it goes. So I think we were willing to put up with stuff and carry it through, whereas now people go, oh, I don't want to do that. They go to the border, they have bad experience, they go, I'm not going back again. And then they start looking for another job or what have you.
Because they can. You know what? That's the other thing today. There are all sorts of jobs, because grass is always greener on the other side of the fence, right?
Yeah.
So there's always jobs that are advertised, and then, well, I don't like to do this. I'm going to run Vancouver through Canada. It's a lot easier. Like hell it is. You know what? You have to go through a lot of dangerous road from here to Vancouver through Canada, or the States, but especially through Canada.
Yeah, I find companies are now advertising for certain lanes. I've got a fleet that does this, and I didn't realize that. My day, you got on with the fleet, you were open board. Wherever they sent you is where you were going. And now today, you kind of apply for this area or this area or this route, and that's what you stay on your whole time, and unless you want to change. And maybe that's part of the problem, is that people are not getting exposed. Like, when you go to California or you go to Florida or wherever you go, you're going to learn about mountains or whatever. You have to kind of learn about that. And I'm not sure if someone's only staying in this area and then all of a sudden goes somewhere else, that's maybe where some of our problems are. I know we got
You're right. There was just to reiterate that, there was that horrible crash about 3 or 4 years ago, I think, in Colorado, with a driver that was from the flatlands somewhere, had never been in mountains.
Yeah. Is that the one that went down the hill and he killed a bunch of people in the town at the bottom?
That's the one. And there was another one just like that, excuse me, many years ago. It's got to be about 35 years ago in Kelowna. I remember that.
Yes.
So, I think that's a real great topic, because you've got some drivers that become experts at New Jersey.
Yes.
And
one of those
runs California, you send him to Jersey and he doesn't know his way around. He'll come back and say, don't ever send me there again. But if you go to Jersey all the time, you learn. So you know what, there's nothing wrong with that. And then there's the predictability in somebody, lifestyle balance is work-life balance is a big thing today for everybody. You don't meet very many truck drivers out there, owner operators, that get home every, once a month or once every 6 months or once a year, even the way it used to be years ago. When JB Hunt started up, really hit that whole open board and expanded, their turnover rate was crazy because they kept guys out for as long as a year. Well, of course, guy calls his house and he finds out his wife's leaving him and he abandons the truck. And I know that those carriers, those big mega carriers in the States, they had a team of drivers that would run around all over North America picking up abandoned trucks.
Yeah. I used to see them when I was, JB Hunt was big when I was running down the States. And I tell you, you go there on like Saturday and Sunday, and it was just full of JB Hunt trucks because those guys just stayed out. They never went home. I always thought that's not for me there. But it's funny because I was talking to my friend, the Chrome Shop Weird. I asked him, I said, do you miss driving? He's been out of the truck for a while, just like myself. And he said, yeah, he really misses it. And I said, what would you do today if you were to to go back, would you go back? Because he used to run a lot of California and stuff. I said, he said, yeah, I want to go back. It'd have to be California. I couldn't handle the truck stops and stuff. Now, I was like you, I was one of those Jersey people. I used to run Jersey probably 3 times a week. I would do that for 2 to 3 weeks out of the month, and then they would switch me around and they give me a Florida or Texas or something like that, so I could spread.
A reward for running Jersey.
You know what? You do need a mental break. You do need a mental break from that area. But the way that we were paid, and this is why I think a lot of drivers don't think about this. The way that we were paid, because at the time we were paid by the hub. So the hub miles, I can cross New Jersey all day and make money, but they paid us for crossing the border. If you went to a broker, it was $25. If you put in your paperwork, like there was lots of little. So if I cross the border with 3 shipments each way, and do that 3 times a week, I'm making, a few $100s just in my order fees. Never mind the mileage, never mind the paperwork, whatever. So the guys who did California might have the same amount of miles. They're going farther, but they're having one load, one turn, and we made pretty good money doing that. But you
worked hard. You did 3 turns a week to Jersey. I did that once. I thought I was going to die, man. And the only reason I was able to do it was everything lined up perfectly. It never happened before, never happened after. It just does. It's too impossible to do it.
I used to be very good at New York City getting in. After a while, you learn the bridges. You learn that if you go in one way, you can come out another way for free. You're trying to save some money, But it's funny because I just put out a podcast, actually I think it came out on yesterday, about the life lessons I learned in trucking. And, stuff like organization, communication, all that stuff I learned from the truck, and a lot of it from New Jersey. You cannot be late in New Jersey if you actually plan on making money and making a turn. I had one guy, all he did was grunt in New York City. I remember this. I had 3 loads going into this guy, and all he would do is grunt. You had to deliver at 4 a.m. He would just point. You had to pull him off with the pallet jack yourself. He would just point to a row. I'd have like 5-6 skids for him. And I knew I was going back there, and he was just one of these mean big guys. Probably that's why he's working at 4 a.m. You didn't mess with him. And I said, by the 3rd time, I'm going to get him to say hello. And I did. The 3rd load, he finally said hello. That's all I got out of him. But you had to learn that stuff, and I don't know if people are learning that stuff nowadays.
No, because you don't quite often today, and it's just been going on for a while. You don't have that interaction with the shippers and the receivers that we used to. So often today, you back up to a door, and they tell you to go into door 41, and somebody will be there, and you hear or you go into the little entrance. And there's a cage, and you can't go any further. And the guy said, "Can I have your bills?" And you hand the guy the bills, and you can't even, and the guy says, "Go wait in your truck, and we'll unload you." And you're not allowed there because everybody's worried about it's either CT pad or security or whatever it is. So it's a different world today where. Years ago, I used to carry stuff in my truck to give shippers, little bottles of maple syrup and stuff. Made life a lot easier.
Yeah, we used to do that. Bring a coffee, but you have to watch that because they'll expect it. And the first time you don't bring them a coffee, you don't get unloaded. So you have to watch how you.
You know what? If you go into the same place, they know that you're a good guy because you gave them something. It depends on the people too.
Yeah. I just find that I don't know. It's almost like trucking's too easy, especially with all the tech, but we're still having accidents. So the tech's not working. All that stuff. I don't know what we have to do.
You know what the tech has done? The tech, especially automatic transmissions. Yeah. When we were growing up and we wanted to learn to drive a truck, you didn't have to just worry about the size of this behemoth truck with a 45-foot trailer on that was 13'6" high. You also had to worry about learning how to shift proficiently. And it's no different for a lot of people than dancing or something else. You've got to have the rhythm. Okay. I can't dance, but I can drive a twin stick transmission or a 13-speed or an 18-speed. But I can't dance but I got it, because I wanted to learn it so badly. It only took, I didn't know how to drive a 13-speed properly, and went out with a guy, it was my turn to drive. And I didn't know what I was doing. I'll be the first to admit. And, I wound that old 318 up to about 3,000 RPM, and the guy almost went through the roof. And he said, he was cool about that. He said, pull over. And he said, I thought you knew how to drive. I thought I was. And within 5 minutes, just the way he explained it, okay? And because I was interested in learning, where I've had people out and given them an opportunity to drive.
Carmen says I can dance. Can
you drive a 13 seat though?
She probably could, but she would just skip about 10 gears. That's right to 13. That's the way to do it.
Today you can take a 16-year-old kid and show them how to make wide turns, how to back up, but they missed that whole part of driving a manual, which was part of it. So that kind of separated the men from the boys alone.
Yeah. To me, it would be boring now. It was, if you're not shifting, what do you got to do, right? Like, I mean, holy smokes. That's why people are like watching ball games or whatever they're watching on as they drive down. You had to shift. Like, I mean, in New Jersey, trust me, you are shifting a lot.
Yeah. And, or Chicago. And if I, like when I sold my shares in Traffics, I had a part of my deal was I could start a little trucking company, one truck, drive it myself. And I told the guys, people I sold to, this is what I want to do. And then a lawyer friend of mine said, you are out of your mind. Because, you're sitting duck for litigation, even if it's not your fault, the drunk gets you. And then I thought, do I really want to go to Cleveland twice a week? Come on. And I thought, I don't need this, but if I was going to buy a truck, it would have had to be an automatic, only because my left leg, even when I sold, was, almost 60. It was 68 years old, and my knee ain't what it used to be. So you have to take that into account. And we have young drivers, and we have old guys like me.
Yeah. I just love the driving of it, the shifting of it, and all. I don't know what people are doing nowadays. Like, there was a thing about being on the road. Like, I really miss it. I do really miss it. I'm going to come up and steal one of your cab over Mac.
Well, since the weather's nice, you know what? There's a Mac sitting there. We'll take it out for a buzz.
You have enough fleet now. You might need to get a trailer and load two. You're gonna have to be like Tackleberry and load 2 or 3 of them on a trailer to bring them all together.
I see Charlie at all the shows.
That seems to be what he's got to do, is go to the shows. I wish I had Charlie's life. I don't know what he.
Yeah, you and me both.
It's
he's the most down to earth guy I've ever met. I just met him a couple of years ago. And we started talking. We were at his place, the Great Lakes chapter, the people that put Clifford on. They had a do at his place, like an open house. Yeah. And I was talking to Charlie, and Charlie was talking about all these companies he worked for as a kid, and he did it just for fun because he loved driving trucks.
Yeah, well, our own company's owned by his dad because he has enough trucks to be.
Oh my God, yeah.
What's the total? Do you even know the total of how many trucks he has? I don't even know how many trucks Charlie has.
Well, the old trucks, he had 350. When I was there, which was September of 23, he had 350 trucks inside, and he had 100 donor trucks. Carmen, I'm sorry, we're having fun. Do you want to join us? We can arrange that. He had 100 donor trucks in the back.
Wow.
That he works off of. Oh, yeah. And all those trucks are licensed and insured.
Oh, I know. He runs them everywhere. Like, what a job to decide which truck am I going to take to the show today.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That's the way. Love it, because he's got some old stuff there. I like his old Kenworth that he's got there. He's got some stuff that I find now, like international cab overs, the Transtars. That's what I learned to drive in.
Didn't we all?
They were the only truck on the road other than the Max, I think. But but whenever I see one, no matter how torn down it is, it brings back the memories of me starting my career. And I'm 61 today. I've been in this thing over 40 years. If I had not gotten into moving and someone had not shown me how to drive and said, you know what, you might want to think about getting your life, I don't know what I'd be doing because we can't pump gas anymore. Because I didn't like to do any of that other stuff that required schooling, but I love driving and I still did today. And I thank God for the trucking industry. That's why I'm so passionate about helping others, because I don't think people see it, especially in today's world, they see it as a job. They don't see it as, we keep saying it's a lifestyle, but that's once you get into it. But the things you learn and the friends that I've got, they're all out of truck. I could not tell you any of my high school friends. I don't even know I probably know their name.
I'm with you. That's like, I never kept in touch with anybody except one teacher.
Yeah.
That I kept in touch with until the time she passed away. But you know what happened, Bruce? We have our government officials, and I'm not faulting them, but they have legislated the fun out of trucking to a point where the culture's gone. You were talking about CB radio before. We don't have CBs anymore. Nobody, I took one of my trucks down to Pennsylvania and I have a CB in it. I think from here to York, Pennsylvania, and every time I saw a truck, I would just, two guys had CBs on by Harrisburg. That was it.
Yeah, I've got one in my pickup truck, and I never hear anybody on it. And I put it on, and I see a buddy of mine going the other way, and nobody uses them anymore. But as I keep saying, what's going on 10 minutes up the road? How do you know there's a snowstorm? Or that's how we knew back in the day.
How many times did a CB radio save your bacon because number one, somebody said there's a snow plow on the right lane and you can't see him.
Yeah.
Okay. How many times did you get on the CB radio looking for directions?
That's right. Right.
It's just simple things like that. We don't have that anymore.
I've used an emergency, froze up the last week when we had that big cold snap.
Right.
Memories of Indiana, man. I froze up at the side of the road right before Christmas. They had another driver coming north that got me, and because the only way that you could get the truck going was to thaw it out, and the truck stops. That was when it was like minus 22 in the States one year, and you couldn't put enough crap in your fuel to keep it from gelling, and so people were freezing up, and it was a long lineup to tow your truck in, and so it was days. I came home for Christmas, and they sent me back down after Christmas to pick up the truck.
I got to tell you, we're getting close to the 5-2 mark, but one of my strangest trucking stories was I was running out west team, and it was freezing cold. It was a real cold snap, and we were going, I think, to South Dakota, or I was jumping out of the truck. I was supposed to jump out of the truck. We were going to Calgary, and we never made it we didn't make it as a team as far as Calgary because we had a couple of delays, including my co-driver putting the truck in the rhubarb in Michigan on 94, which took about 6 hours, and then delay at the border. But we were on 94, and this is in 1981, I think, and I had two K100 Kenworths at the time with a 380 Cat. And in the old days, we used to put a little bit, and not very much, but a pop bottle full of gasoline in with our diesel. And that would keep us from gelling. Yeah. And one night on 94, going west through Wisconsin into Minnesota on the Saturday night, I did not see one vehicle for 6 hours. That was so eerie.
Yeah, that's
everything had frozen up.
Yeah, that still bothers me today when you're coming the other direction, you don't see any cars. You go, okay, what's coming up that I don't know?
Is it the end of the world? And you know what I did see? I could see at the sides of the road way back, I could see emergency vehicles because there were a lot of fires because people were using all sorts of shortcuts in order to get heat, plugging in space heaters and this is back before the time when people had circuit breakers, they had fuses. If you remember, people with fuses sometimes used to put a copper penny in, stupid stuff, but people did it because they didn't have any money or they were stuck on a Saturday night and there's 40 below. And I don't care how well insulated your house is, you're going to freeze.
Well, it's funny that gasoline, the other one is so, I was telling this to somebody, they don't believe that we used to cook a chicken on the motor as we ran down the road. You wrap it in foil. The guys actually did this running down the road. You run for 2 hours, your chicken
was ready.
But there's so many good hacks back there. But I remember the gasoline one. But companies didn't want you to do that because if you poured too much gasoline in there, you ruined the motor, right? Then you have to
it would melt. It would actually melt. Apparently, it burns so hot. And I would not dare do that with these new trucks because God knows what, like these things are a different. They're a different breed. Now, I heard something, and I don't know how true it is. Have you heard anything about the Trump administration federally allowing trucks to be like all the pollution stuff being taken off? Have you heard anything?
No, guys bringing back 1974 Freightliners in a hurry. No, I did not. I did not hear that. Now, whether that's mixed in this whole reversal of EV, I don't know what's going to happen with EVs now. Like, that's I'm all for climate change. I don't know. It seems to be like we're going the other way now. I'm not sure how that's going to work out, but I don't know. Yeah, if guys take them off, I don't think they would reverse that though. Like, I mean, I know nobody's a fan of DEF fluid or any of that stuff, but we're so far along in it now that everybody.
I agree. I have to tell you, Bruce, when I fire up those old trucks at my shop, even one of them for 2 minutes just to build up enough air to move it in the shop. Oh my God, man! It is so putrid. I hate to admit it, but we got spoiled. Just, at Traffics, we had a bunch of newer equipment. We had a couple of owner-operators that had older stuff, but our own stuff and most of the owner-operators had newer stuff. You could run them all day inside the shop, and there wouldn't be any complaints because they burn so clean. But my God, that you let one of those old trucks run for 5 minutes, everybody was complaining.
You're going to have the fire department at your place. No, just starting up the trucks. Don't worry. I'll call from Burlington. I'll look for smoke signals from Burlington. The Batman light will come up. We're only an hour away. We're 45 minutes away.
We certainly we've come a long way with this equipment. It's still far from perfect. I bet you 60% of the trucks running up and down the 401 have some sort of a light on, a sensor light. That's, there's so many sensors on them.
I'm glad I stopped driving right before all of that stuff became kind of mainstream the way it is today. Like the last trucks that I drove didn't have DEF tanks on them. We kept our trucks a bit longer because we had lower mileage because of the way our delivery system worked. But I never had to get into DEF. I stopped driving before that. We were trying to put Qualcomm units in right when I stopped driving, but that never got done. So I never had to worry about e-logs. I never had to worry about DEF.
You got out just as the going was.
I got out right when all that crap started coming in because I still got.
Bruce, that's where everything the road turned very sharply at that juncture. And that's when things changed, and that's when the whole culture went sideways and everything, because it just wasn't the same. A lot of guys did what you did. Listen, I did it too. I chose, I used to take a truck every summer for a couple of weeks and go out west and run around the city and do stuff. And, it was two things. Number one, as our business grew, I couldn't, it wasn't fair to the business because I had other things to do, but I enjoyed doing it. And you know what? It wasn't as much fun anymore with all the new rules. And that's what happened. Listen, Bruce, we're going to be running out of time. And how can people get hold of you? How can they listen to the Lead Pedal Radio? Give us some information, please.
So probably the easiest way is just go to leadpedalpodcast.com. You can reach everything from there. If whatever your favorite podcast streaming platform is, you can find the Lead Pedal Podcast on there. Subscribe to the show. It's business and career information, stuff like this. We hope to help the next driver, whether you 1 year or 10 years.
Well, Bruce, I want to thank you on behalf of Rico and me.
Always fun.
I had a blast tonight. This was, you know what? Carmen was right. We did have a lot of fun, and I can't wait to have you on again. And to our listeners, on behalf of my co-host Rico and me, we want to thank you. You could have been anywhere else, but you chose to spend this hour with us, and we appreciate that. Remember to put like on social media, so it'll help. It'll just help with everything. And as Rico always says, keep it between the mustard and the mayonnaise. And as I always say, catch you on the flip flop. Good night and God bless. Thanks again, Bruce.
Thanks.
Be well.
See you later.
Take care. Bye-bye.